Today I'm going to discuss the most important novel and which is really very famous about the Pride and Prejudice. The name of the novels is Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice is an 1830 novels of manners by Jane Austen. The novels follows the character development of the Elizabeth Bennet, who is the dynamic protagonist of the book, who learns about the repercussions of the hasty judgments and come to appreciate the difference between the superficial goodness and actual goodness. So in this novel, which is written by the Jane Austen, Elizabeth Bennet, who is the protagonist of the novel, the whole story revolves around her and how she comes to learn the repercussions of hasty judgments and come to appreciate the difference between the superficial goodness. Superficial goodness, when someone is trying to be good, is called a superficial goodness. And what is the actual goodness? The actual goodness is natural, which is come into the behavior of the others naturally. It is not forcefully, it is not dramatically. It is all about the actual goodness, and superficial goodness is all about when a person is trying to be good. So Elizabeth is the second child in the family of five daughters. Though the circumstances of the time and the environment push her to seek a marriage of convincing for economic security. So, Elizabeth is the second child in a family of five daughters. So, she is the second one of the five daughters. Though the circumstances of the time and environment push to seek a marriage of convincing or for economic security. So, now she have to push her for the to marry a person who is economic secure, and she now needs economic security. That's why she have to get married with him. So this is the main reason why she is getting married with him, just because of her economic security. एलिजाबेथ विश टू मैरी फॉर लव. वो लव के लिए मैरिज करना चाहती थी, बट जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ द इकोनॉमिक सिक्योरिटी she have to get married with him. So whole story revolves around Elizabeth and her five daughters, and how they, just because of the pride, just because of the prejudice, she has to take the decision, she has to take the lots of difficulties in her life, just because of the economic security, just because of the some pride. She have to marry with with a with a person just because of a economic security, not for love. So the whole story revolves around this kind of a stories, uh, and the main theme is all about the pride and prejudice. So here we have some quiz questions and MCQs questions, which is very important according to examination point of views of the students who pursuing for the UGC net or masters in English. And you have to do the lots of practice about that questions, because these are the questions which are repeating in your exams again and again, and these are the important points you have to remember while you are writing your answer in your exam, or otherwise mm, you are going to face the UGC net exams papers. Complete the quotation. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good future must be in want of wife. The Bennet family lives in the village of the Longbourn. How does Mr. Darcy often Elizabeth at the first ball? He refused to dance with her. Elizabeth's best friend is named as Charlotte Lucas. Why does the Jane visits to the Bingleys end up lasting for days? She gets soaked in a rainstorm and becomes ill. Why does it mean that Mr. Bennet's property is entailed? It can only be inherited by a male. What reasons does the Wickham gives Elizabeth for his dislikes of Darcy? Darcy cheated him out of an inheritance. To which Bennet daughters does the Mr. Collins propose marriage? Elizabeth. Whom does Mr. Collins marry? Charlotte Lucas. Why does Miss Bingley dislikes Elizabeth? She is jealous of Darcy growing attraction to Elizabeth. Where do the Bingley and Darcy go for the winter? London. In March, Elizabeth goes to visit Charlotte Lucas. Lady Catherine de Bourgh is the Darcy aunt. When Darcy first proposes to Elizabeth, he spent most of the proposal dwelling on how socially unsuitable a match she is for him. Why Darcy proposes for the first time Elizabeth turn him, turns him down. Elizabeth's feelings towards Darcy begins to change when he is sending her a letter explaining his actions. Darcy estate is called Pram Pramberley. Darcy estate is called Pramberley. Where does the Lydia spend the summer and why? Brighton to be near the militia regiment. What social disastrous romantic decision does Lydia make? She elopes with Wickams. She elopes with Wilcox, who spearheads the search for Lydia after Mr. Bennet returns home in defeat. Mr. Gardner. Mr. Gardiner, who pay off Wickham's convincing him to marry Lydia Darcy. Why he returned to the Netherfield? Mr. Bingley hmm, resumes courting Jane. When he returns to the Netherfield, Mr. Bingley resumes courting Jane. Why does Lady Catherine forbid Elizabeth to do Mr. Darcy? The novel ends with Bingley marry Jane and Darcy marry Elizabeth. So these are the two daughters from the daughters of five, and both are getting married at the end of the novel. So these are the most important questions which you have to remember, and which is very important according to examination point of view. So here I am going to recall in order to make you understand in a better way. So the Pride and Prejudice is all about the pride and prejudice where the two girls marry a person just because of her economic security, not for love. So it is the main theme of the novel. So Jane and Elizabeth both really wants to get married for love, not for the economic security. So these are the main theme of the story. And means and Elizabeth is the second child in a family of five daughters, and though the circumstances of the time and environment pushed her to seek a marriage for convincing for economic security. So, in this first question, complete the quotations. It is a truth universally acknowledged that is, the single man is the position of good fortune, must be in a want of wife. ये एक यूनिवर्सली एक्नॉलेज्ड है that a single man who possession of a good fortune. अगर वो good fortune चाहता है तो must be in a want of a wife. The Bennet family lives in the village of the Longbourn. How does the Mr. Darcy often Elizabeth at his first football? He refused to dance with her. Elizabeth's best friend is named as Charlotte Lucas. Why does the Jane visits to the Bingley and the plastic for days? She gets soaked in a rain storm and becomes ill. What does it mean that Mr. Bennet property is entailed? It can only be inherited by a male. What reason does the Wickham gives Elizabeth for his dislikes of Darcy? Darcy cheated him out of her inheritance. To which Bennet daughter does the Mr. Colin propose marriage? Elizabeth. Whom does Mr. Colin marry? Charlotte Lucas. Why does the Miss Bingley dislike Elizabeth? She is jealous of Darcy growing attractions to Elizabeth. Where do the Bingley and Darcy go for the winter? London. In March, Elizabeth goes to visit Charlotte. Why Darcy first proposed to the Elizabeth he spent most of the proposal dwelling on how socially unsuitable a match she is for him. When Darcy proposes for the first time, Elizabeth turns him down. Elizabeth's feelings towards Darcy being to change when he sent her a letter explaining his actions. Darcy Estates is called Pembrey. Where does the Lydia spend the summer and why? Brighton to be near the militia regiments. What socially disastrous romantic decision does the Lydia make? She elopes with the Wickham, who spearhead the search for Lydia after Mr. Bennet returns home in defeats Mr. Gardiner, who pays off Wickham, convincing him to marry Lydia Darcy. When he returns to the Netherfield, Mr. Bingley resumes courting Jane. What does Lydia Catherine forbid Elizabeth to do? Mr. Darcy. The novels end up with the Bingley marry Jane and Darcy marry Elizabeth. Thank you so much. I hope you like this video, which is very important. According to your examination point of views, you have to remember these are the most important points. Thank you so much.